Hello and welcome to Explaining Psychology. So today we're going to look at one of the first topics that I taught my students, and that's conformity. So we better start off with what conformity is, and conformity can be explained simply by saying yielding to group pressure. So that's really any time that you're going along with the behaviour of the people around you. So I teach the AQA A specification, and they require students to know about 3 types of conformity. The first type is something called compliance, and this is when you go along with the group but you don't really agree with what they're doing or what they're saying. So for example, you might be able to think of a time that you've done this. Say all of your friends were going on about how fit Wayne Rooney is, and you think he is pretty disgusting. But all of your really good friends going, oh yeah, he's well fit. You might feel like, oh, I'm the only one that doesn't actually think that, and I quite want my friends to like me. I'm not sure if it's worth, being truthful here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along with the group and I'm going to say that Wayne Rooney's actually alright looking, even though I think he's really ugly. So that's an example of compliance. It happens all the time. If someone says, oh, I absolutely love Orange is the New Black, it's amazing, which I think it is, by the way, and you actually think it's rubbish, you might go, oh yeah, it's quite good, just to fit in with your friends. So that's the first type, and it's kind of a tiered system, and this is the lowest form of conformity. You don't really believe at any stage there. The next type that you need to know, so thinking going up in stages here, is internalisation. No, it's identification. So identification is when you go along with the group and you actually agree with the group, but only in a very specific setting. So for example, I've never been in the army myself, but if you join the army, you might go along with all the rules and behaviour that's expected of you while you're in the army. But when you actually leave that setting, so for example, you return back to an everyday job, you might not continue with those sorts of behaviour anymore. So that's identification, where you really go along with the group and you agree with those behaviours, but only when you're with the group. When you leave that group, you no longer exhibit those behaviours or agree that that's the right way to behave. And then we come to the strongest form of conformity. I think Freddie wants to. Do you want to get down, Freddie? I'm not sure. The strongest form of conformity, there we go, it's going to fly, is internalisation. Now this is really intense form of conformity, and this is when you completely agree, privately and publicly, you agree that the behaviour that the group is doing is the right behaviour. So, for example, if you went to university and you happened to be in halls with a load of vegetarians, and you started to cook more vegetarian meals, you started to learn a bit more about animal rights, and then you actually believed that you should be a vegetarian and you agreed with that group. But even after you left university and you're not necessarily living with those people, you are still a vegetarian. That is internalisation, because you've literally internalised that idea and it's become your own idea now. You don't even need the group there. So compliance can be seen as agreeing publicly, so very superficially, but privately you don't agree at all, you don't think Wayne Rooney's fit at all, but publicly you're going along with it. Identification is the next tier up, where publicly and privately you do think that's the right way to behave, but only when you're with that specific group, and then when you leave that group, that disappears and you go back to your own way of thinking. And then we've got the strongest, highest form of conformity, which is identification. And that is when you completely, publicly and privately agree with the group forever. So you could be a vegetarian for 50 years, 60 years. Personally, I could never be a vegetarian because I would miss my Nando's a little bit. But perhaps it could be linked to things like religion as well. If you meet a group of friends who are in a particular religion and then you become that religion, you very much internalise those ideas. So hopefully that's cleared up the 3 types of conformity for you. I'm going to film a video in a minute of the explanations of conformity, and it's really important you know the difference between the two because it can catch you out in the exam a little bit. Any requests or feedback, just comment below. And that was Explaining Psychology. See you soon.